The front pages are dominated by Prince Andrew this morning. It follows the news he has reached an out-of-court settlement in the civil sex case brought against him by Virginia Giuffre. She claimed the Duke abused her in 2001, claims he has always denied. Royal editor Russell Myers and lawyer Dr Ann Olivarius, a lawyer who specialises in cases of sexual abuse, join us now. Extraordinary headlines this morning, and it all seemed to come about quite quickly yesterday, Russell.
Yes.
Were you expecting it? Were the press expecting it?
No, we weren't expecting it to be tomorrow. We talk about yesterday, rather. You talk about bombshells. This certainly was one. I think that everybody did think that most civil cases of this nature are settled out of court, and at some stage it had to come. But the timing is very, very interesting about this because, you know, the Queen has just celebrated her Platinum Jubilee. Prince Andrew had been summoned to meet the Queen. Prince Charles had also been putting pressure on him to sort this out. And it seems as though these negotiations have taken a little time to settle out, but really were thrashed out in the last few days. My understanding is just yesterday the sort of ink was drying on the paper. So we had this extraordinary statement that was put out, and I'll give you a bit of it. It said, Virginia Giuffre and Prince Andrew have reached an out-of-court settlement. The parties will file a stipulated dismissal upon Miss Giuffre's receipt of the settlement, the sum of which is not being disclosed publicly anyway. The Prince Andrew intends to make a substantial donation to Miss Giuffre's charity in support of victims' rights. So very interesting, the language that is being used. He hasn't admitted any of the allegations as part of this this deal that they've done. Again, my understanding is eye-watering figures involved, £12 million, and that's before you've even got involved with the legal fees on Mr. Giuffre's side, his legal fees as well, multi-millions involved. I mean, he talks about his regret associating with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, commends Miss Giuffre's bravery for standing up, but also talks about the fact that, you know, I think that there may... He believes, in some way, that there may be a way back. I mean, that's up for debate, for sure. That's
a conversation undoubtedly that will happen further down the line. But, Dr Ann, did you expect this sort of an out-of-court settlement? Was this case ever going to land in court?
It has been a curious thing. He's had legal advice, presumably, or he hasn't taken legal advice, but he has not handled this particularly well. I think that's quite apparent. He's dug a ditch for himself, so it gets more and more difficult to get out of it. Clearly, before he went to deposition in the States, which is a sworn interview that would have been videotaped, I mean, he needed to settle this because we know from the Emily Matlis, interview, at the very least, that this is not a man who is trained or able to maneuver an interview. That interview was a really easy one for him. It was a layup, as we say. In depositions, if I were to do that deposition, I'd be asking all sorts of really private, intrusive questions, which would be my ethical duty to ask. Yeah. I'd be asking him, Prince Andrew, how many times did you attend these parties at Jeff Epstein's? How many girls were you with at Jeff Epstein's? How many acts of sexual intercourse did you witness at Jeffrey Epstein's? We know what went on in those parties, and he would have had to answer those questions, and if not, he would have been held in contempt. Mm-hmm. And how could he possibly go through that experience, given that already with Mateless, he has testified to a medical condition that he has allegedly, that he doesn't sweat, which just does not exist. Mm-hmm. So given that he was already caught out, in a very awkward situation there by attesting to something that just doesn't exist, what would he do by a really fine series of attorneys? And Virginia Giuffre has excellent attorneys, some of the finest. Mm-hmm. How would he handle those questions? It would have been a disaster.
What does this mean now for Virginia Giuffre? What is her future looking like? Does this mean that we won't hear from her anymore? Does she take this big settlement and just disappear?
Well, she is allegedly drafting, she's writing a book. How much of this story she'll tell in the book is not clear, and whether it will get published. We only have heard this reported. I don't know for a fact that the book will be published. But it's up to her somewhat what she does. She has to write the script of her own life. And she's been writing a very interesting script from a really poor girl, vulnerable, who had very little education, support, resources. And she's been able to hold a prince to account from a foreign country, even. That's pretty extraordinary. I expect good things from her, and I think she's really trying to do honorable work, important work. I think she's really trying to be a big contributor to stopping sex trafficking, which of course is an enormous problem in this country and in the States, around the world.
Of course. Such a huge amount of shame, really, for the royal family over the past how many months, Russell? And I guess this stops more shame potentially being very publicly held to account in the courtroom. But what does it mean for Prince Andrew? Will he just sort of quietly disappear into the background of the...
Well, that's what they will hope. I mean, the pressure was coming from the very, very top, and that's the Queen, Charles and William, and this is his future and his children's future at stake as well. And make no bones about it, been one of the most humiliating and scandalous episodes in recent history for the royal family at large. So where does this leave him? I mean, he is an absolute pariah. He, speaking to friends of his, they still say that he believes he has something to give public life, but who on earth will want to work with him? I mean, he's already been proved to try to dismantle Virginia Giuffre's character before even getting to a courtroom. So now that he's settled out of court, I certainly don't think it's the last of the matter. I think, again, the language used in that statement suggests that he may want to work with victims' charities. I mean, his own daughter runs a charity for trafficked women that has been very, very successful. So maybe that would be an in for him. But again, I can't see anybody wanting to touch him at this stage.
No, of course. But it is, of course, the Jubilee year. It's a joyous occasion for the family, for the Queen. No one wants a big, shameful court case hanging over that, or indeed anything related.
Well, this is
Prince
exactly...
Andrew, really. It all feels tainted.
Well, this is why the deal was done. I mean, the pressure was on him to make this go away, because if he was going to trial in the autumn and you have all the celebrations of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, record-breaking, lots of things happening to celebrate the Queen's reign, this would have been an absolute stench over it. And so, therefore, it's probably the right thing to do from the royal family's point of view. But, of course, the questions are asked, where has this money come from? I mean, reports today that the Queen has dipped into her own personal coffers to settle some of this settlement. I mean, if that is the case, then surely the public have a right to know where this money has come from. Debatable whether it's public or private money, the Queen's private estate, which is another argument. But it's extraordinary sums for a woman that he claims he had no recollection of meeting, denied all the allegations in front of him, and yet here we are.
Yes, there were lots of things online yesterday of people supposedly queuing around Buckingham Palace because Prince Andrew was giving money away. Well, people he had never met.
We laugh,
but it's scenes that they don't need.
Well, we laugh, but these are the extraordinary situation we are in. I mean, he and the bottom line is, he's paid someone money of someone who is making allegations against him that he'd always denied. He's got away with, confessing to any of those allegations in this statement. But, public opinion weighs heavily in this instance.
It does. Dr Ann, thank you so much for your insights. And Russell, as always, thank you very much. Extraordinary days ahead. I'm guessing there'll be lots of different viewpoints. Thank you both very, very much indeed.
Don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Lorraine on the ITV Hub, and all the best clips, compilations and playlists right here on our channel. Just subscribe now and you'll never miss an upload. Click here to watch another video similar to this one, or click here to head to our channel's homepage to explore all of our exciting videos.